Hey everyone, this is GGN. I have a pretty good set of articles here. And if you're new to GGN, you know that the articles themselves, I don't go into great detail, but the order in which I present them is kind of in story form. So it allows me to cover a lot and move fast. So Iran, EU, and US resume talks on draft nuclear deals. So they're trying to work this out apparently. Iran's foreign ministers resumed trilateral talks with the European Union Foreign Policy Chief and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry over a draft agreement on Tehran's nuclear energy program. So, sorry about the trains in the background. I can't really do anything to stop that. But I hate trains. I think that people should be compensated for taking people's time when you have to wait on them. And I think those horns are pretty demonic. I've mentioned that before. I think some of these guys actually sit there with their horns late at night, 3 in the morning, and just pound away at them when they know they're going through a small town. They don't need to be doing all that racket. But anyways, as Israel's going on the attack here, Netanyahu warns of historic mistake. So they may be drafting this nuclear agreement on Thursday or Friday, but it says here that it will be a historic mistake. He said that the compromise would be the deal of a century for Iran, as it will allow them to continue developing its nuke program. Says the Geneva proposals are weakening pressure on Iran and Iran's concessions and non-concessions. Like I said, I think this has to do with financial reasons. It says here, Senate hawks may foil Iran talks with new sanctions. They want to block a deal to lift sanctions. Senator Corker says with, I guess, major progress being reported from the Geneva P5+1 talks, these Zio-Cons are hard at work trying to put more roadblocks in front of any possible deal. You have an ex-CIA official saying more Iran sanctions are not a good idea. That's what he warned. It's not a good idea to add more sanctions. As Paul Pillar, in an interview with CNN, he rejected the idea that by some Western officials adding that these sanctions to the mountain of sanctions that are already in effect is the way to close the nuclear deal. So this is from Ynet News, a Jewish site, and I just think it's propaganda. They're saying Iran during these talks is pointing missiles, holding a simulated missile attack on Israel. I don't know why they would do that. It seems like obviously Israel's against this, but I don't think there's much they can really do, and I think they feel that their power is weakening. So they have to project power even though it's not really there. So by that I mean, could they actually successfully carry out an attack on Iran and follow it through without dragging other countries in it? Well, no, they couldn't, and so maybe they just don't have the support that they thought that they used to have. So this is a good way to act like they still have that power, while at the same time, just going along with it, really. That's just my personal take. I could be wrong, I'm sure I am, but because who knows what's going on behind closed doors. And having the Balkans move closer to a joint air defense system. So Croatia is leading the effort in the development of a regional approach to air defense by 2019 that would be linked to NATO's integrated air defense systems. We were just talking about this. I think there's one in Romania. Possibly. But there's been a lot of news about nuclear missiles and nuclear this and that. We even had one article somehow get out or whatever. They're just basically reporting it that the Pentagon or the Department of Defense in the U.S. has basically successfully tested one of these kinetic energy weapons that usually, they hurl objects at Mach speed, cause, they like that because they don't have nuclear fallout. And then you have this, Saudi Arabia, remember they lost their seat to the UN Security Council. They're saying Jordan may take it up, and they're actually being forced and pressured into taking that seat, even though they don't want it. But Saudi Arabia is they're not gonna let go here. Nuclear weapons on order from Pakistan. They've invested in Pakistani nuclear weapons projects and believes it could obtain atomic bombs at will. They said it was using context of countering Iran's atomic program. It's now possible that the Saudis might be able to deploy such devices more quickly than the Islamic Republic. Remember I covered before about how Saudi Arabia had something about missiles pointed towards Iran and Israel. So you can see all these, these different factions and countries and kingdoms and these royalties, and at the top, it's like they all have their guns pointed towards each other, and they're saying, "Don't do it, or I'll shoot." And us little people, we're just down here, just barely trying to get by, most of us, and it's we don't have much of a say in anything, and keep getting told that this is a democracy, or it's a republic. But for the most part, I think we all understand that we don't have any really decision-making powers in the overall scheme of things. So I usually go through this spiel right around now just to promote my website. For global government news, it's ggnonline.net. On YouTube, my channels are DDarko 2012 and 2013. And people do donate once in a while, and I do appreciate it, just for the time I put into these reports. And I know most of you, like I said, most of us are just barely getting by, paycheck to paycheck or whatever. So, you don't have to think that you have to give like $50 or $20. Some people I've had them, they've donated like, I think it was $2. So, anything is appreciated, man, for food, water, and that. I just told someone this earlier in an email that basically it's usually the same people. I noticed that other people that make news reports or stuff like that, they say it's usually the same people. So that's cool, man. I mean, if you've watched these videos for like 2 years, 3 years, and you haven't been able to donate, I understand. That's cool. But for those that have, I really do appreciate it. Thank you. I hate having to go through this, but it's just the way it is. So, Saudi Arabia to spend millions to train army of Islam in Syria. Again, so Saudi Arabia's not going to let this go. They're preparing. Well, we know what they've been doing. They've been destabilizing Syria and stuff. They've been a big backer besides Qatar. Preparing to spend millions of dollars to arm and train thousands of these Syrian militiamen, or some people call them terrorists, a new opposition force dubbed Army of Islam to fight the National Army. Interesting. We're just talking about Pakistan, that ordering nukes from them. They said that it will be trained with Pakistani help, and estimates of it likely strength of basically 5,000 to more than 50,000 people. But diplomats and experts warn on Thursday that there are serious doubts about its prospects, as well as fears of blowback by extremists returning from Syria. You have John Kerry, he's saying that he's confident in the date for Syria talks that'll be set within days. So is this a concession that the West basically lost? But I don't know. The one thing I do know is refugees, and it's all about the refugees. So 16 killed, over 90 wounded in double bombing in Syria. So they're confident in these peace talks with Syria. Then all of a sudden, it kills, actually 90 people injured. That's pretty bad. 8 people were killed in the blast in the central capital in Syria. It was a suicide attacker that detonated himself in a car bomb in front of the Air Force Intelligence Headquarters, taking out an intelligence branch chief and 7 other officers. Sounds familiar. This is what they really want in Syria, I think. But I'm talking about the Zionist factions, Saudi Arabia and them. 58 killed, 82 wounded as suicide bombers target Iraq army bases. And this goes along with this. Iraq 2013, the deadliest year since 2008, 7,000 plus killed. And you can probably multiply that times, 20 to 100 for people that were injured. So you're talking about 70,000 people that have been maimed. And that's a conservative estimate. Drone strikes served CIA revenge. So they wanted peace talks, right? They were actually trying to get a peace talk going in Pakistan. It was a new approach to counter the terrorism crisis. The failure of both drone strikes and Pakistani military operations in the tribal areas to stem the tide of terrorism has led to a decision by the Prime Minister to try a political dialogue with the Taliban. But the drone strikes that killed this leader, supposedly, he was killed like 11 times over, so who knows if it's even true, stopped the peace talks before they could even begin. He said that there was a conspiracy to sabotage the peace talks, charging that the U.S. had scuttled the initiative on the eve 18 hours before a formal delegation was to fly to Pakistan and hand over this formal invitation. So that's kind of a big deal. U.S. assassination drone strike kills 5 in South Yemen. So we've been keeping our eyes on Yemen in these reports. And like I said, some places are actually Al-Qaeda. basically Western mercenaries, and then, or, Zionist mercenaries. They use Sunni Salafists and that. And then sometimes they're just people that are tribal, like in Pakistan. I have to say that they were suspected Al-Qaeda militants. So some places are meant to be just, pardon my French, shitholes and be destabilized for a long time. And some places, they may actually want it to be settled, whatever, so that they can start, raping people of their resources and that. But as far as Al-Shabaab goes in Somalia, Kenya is telling Somalis to avoid the rebel sites or hinting at new drone strikes against them. There's actually so many Somalis out there in Minnesota that you have a Somali winning a Minneapolis City Council seat. As far as more destabilization goes in Africa, Tunisia crisis deepens after a failure to pick a new prime minister. And good old Al-Qaeda in Mali, right? Al-Qaeda claims responsibility for killing a French journalist in Mali. Actually, it was 2 French journalists. They say the killings were the minimum of debt owed by the French people on their new crusade, which could be somewhat true. But if it wasn't for the French, Al-Qaeda wouldn't be there, because, like I said, wherever they want to go and dominate, Al-Qaeda will show up, kind of like a proxy mercenary force to destabilize. Then they have a reason to go there. My first guess would be the actual Tuareg rebels, because they were basically told that they would get their own autonomy after helping to get rid of Al-Qaeda, and then they said, screw you. So it says here that a French official is called terrorist groups. That's what they call them after interviewing a spokesman for the Tuareg separatists. So are they saying that it was them? Okay, that's what it was then. Okay, this operation was a response to crimes committed by France against Malians and the work of African and international forces against basically AQUEM, basically the Tuaregs. They said the murders have been carried out by a unit led by the Tuareg commander. And then here in the UK, French military invades Plymouth, bringing chaos. It says the Royal Navy was caught unaware. Unexpected invasion of 50 French military vehicles caught Plymouth police and the Royal Navy by surprise and brought chaos to the city roads. They saw the French army hit our beaches. They immediately called the police for help. It says it's been 610 years since the French soldiers last hit our shores, and since then, French Plymouth, don't forget the British naval warship, I believe it was, in Gibraltar, North Africa, in that area, Morocco. So you had Russia flying a nuclear-capable plane, a real fast plane, high-tech, over Colombia, I believe. You had a Chinese reconnaissance ship, pretty high-tech as well, off the coast of Hawaii. Then you have this, China deploys new bomber with long-range land attack missile. It's capable of attacking Hawaii and Guam, according to a report. So it seems like a lot of posturing or muscle flexing type of diplomacy. Who knows if it really is or it's just a big show. But like I said, us down at the bottom, we're the ones that are going to get blown to bits and pieces while these people will be down in their underground bases or floating out in space like Elysium. Into some conspiracy news. You have this, how the feds took down another Navy officer in sprawling bribery scandal. So a lot of that stuff going on, people being dismissed, top generals and admirals. Teens dress as Twin Towers. You've probably seen this win a costume contest. They've apologized since then, but the two, British, actually, white ethnic British people. Then you have this women's Boston Marathon bombing costume and what it says about everyone. People all worry about being offended and stuff like that. It sucks what happens when people get hurt like that or maimed, because people did. Whether it's a conspiracy theory or not, it's kind of doesn't really matter. It's just that, what does that say about our culture, of death and darkness and vampires and zombies and stuff? I mean, this is their own country, their own culture. I mean, it just goes to show you that there really is no culture at all anymore. It's just whatever is created for us completely. They're completely absorbed into it. In other words, you have nothing to really unite over. You have nothing to really fight for anymore except for your cell phone. Hopefully I'm making sense here. I'm not saying we should all rally around 9/11 and the Twin Towers and go attack somebody. Overall, though, people are getting really sensitive about the Halloween costumes this year. Lastly, a Christian college student president comes out as an atheist. He says, I don't have to hide anymore. Guns and Ammo fires an editor for backing gun control, so it's like South Park. I don't know what to believe anymore.